The following is a special video presentation of the Hennepin County Library.
Hello. Welcome to a discussion with Carolyn G. Hart, best-selling and beloved mystery author and a good friend. I'm Mary Cannon-Trone. I'm the mystery review columnist for Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine and the Minneapolis Star-Tribune's mystery book reviewer. Welcome today.
Thank you very much.
Carolyn and I, at the risk of telling all of you or all of our viewers what they already know, I would like to do a short introduction anyway. Carolyn's first mystery novel, Death on Demand, came out in 1987. Now we're 7 years later, and we're looking at 10 books.
That's correct.
8 in the Death on Demand series, which we'll talk about later. Great title, named after the mystery bookstore that your protagonist owns, inherited from an uncle. I always wanted an uncle like that. And it was fun for me because that book came out in 1987. It was the same year I had opened Once Upon a Crime Mystery Bookstore. My comment was, you seem to be having a lot more fun than I did. And Max Starling, her beloved and would-be boyfriend and future husband, was not in my life, but then I didn't need him at that point. But last year, in 1993, you debuted a second series, the Henry O series.
That's right.
With an older character now,
Yes.
retired, a woman of a certain age, I guess we could say.
Yes, 60-ish and sassy.
Yes, retired journalist.
That's correct.
And now an academic.
That's yes.
Sort of.
Sort of. Sort
As
of.
comfortably as she's ever going to fit.
Right.
This program is designed to bridge a gap between writers and readers. We can assume that most of the people who are watching us today are interested in learning more about you, learning more about how you got where you are.
Okay.
And I think we can also assume, since I've never met a writer who is not an avid reader, that a lot of the people perhaps watching today would love to be a novelist, would love to write a mystery, would like to be someday where you are. I'd like you to tell them about how you got where you are. I'd like you to talk about it, because I've heard you talk about it before. This was not an overnight success story.
No, actually, my first book, Mary, was published 30 years ago. That was the year my daughter was born. And I had started out to be a newspaper reporter. And as a matter of fact, I was convinced I was going to be the next Maggie Higgins. I had trench coat, I chain smoked Chesterfields. I mean, there was just no way it wasn't.
Spiral notebook.
Oh, definitely.
Extras.
Spiral notebook, you know, soft lead pencils. And then I met a young law student, and that changed the course of my life. And I ended up as a young wife and mother, and these were the days before young women were expected to scale the Matterhorn, hold down a full-time job, bake cookies, and get their MBA on the weekends.
Right.
So I was a mother and at home with the children, and I very much missed writing, but I didn't want to go back to work on a newspaper because it is such demanding work, so exhausting.
Yeah, it's like a 60 or 80-hour work week.
Right, yes, so that's normal. So I thought, you know, I love mysteries. That's what I've always read. And I saw an ad or an announcement of a contest in the Writer magazine for a juvenile mystery. And I thought, gee, I love Nancy Drew. I think I'll do that. So that was my first mystery. It was called The Secret of the Cellars, and it won the contest.
Oh,
and
good for you.
This year, Scandal in Fairhaven is my 23rd published novel. And it has been very rocky road between the first book and the 23rd.
Because you stopped writing mysteries in the middle.
No, actually, I have always written mysteries, but Mary, the truth of the matter is that there was a long period in there, especially in the 60s and really until about 1983 or 4, that in New York there might as well have been a sign that said American women need not apply.
Yes.
What I did not realize as a writer living in isolation in Oklahoma was that New York publishers thought that there were two kinds of mysteries: the hard-boiled private eye, written by an American man, and the traditional mystery, written by British women. And where did that leave American women, traditional mystery writers? And I do write a traditional mystery. So I kept writing books, and they'd sell and they disappear from view. And I even had 4 books published in England that have never been published in the United States. But in
So they understood that they still had readers for this.
Well, what's funny though is that I can't. My present series has not sold in England, so explain publishing to me. but what really happened is that in 1978, Marcia Muller wrote the first Sharon McCone mystery.
Yeah.
And that is a watershed year for American women mystery writers, because New York looked at it. They said, okay, this is the real American mystery, even though it's written by a woman. So they published it.
But now even that had a female private eye.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It was a private eye, so they bought it, but it was a female.
Yes.
And very soon thereafter, Sue Grafton and Sarah Paretsky came on the scene. New York bought those books. The response was incredible. And what New York publishers realized is that American readers were very interested in reading mysteries with American women protagonists, written by American women.
Well, there's a huge proportion of the mystery readers are women.
I know.
It was
Yes,
always
yes.
foolish for publishers to forget.
But
that
they
the
have a tendency.
ultimate customer was
Well,
the-
honey, I think they have a tendency to dismiss women, don't
Yes.
you think, perhaps?
Well, I think they might have a tendency to do that. I was actually working in publishing in
In that
Doubleday,
period.
which now is part of the Bantam Doubleday group at that point. And I remember Doubleday Crime Club, which were
Exactly.
basically sold to libraries as hardcovers
Yes.
on a subscription series. Rarely got into bookstores.
Yeah, that's true.
Charlotte McLeod's Rest Ye Merry,
Yes.
published in that series. And she's also credited, like you, I'd say, with the mysteries that are more fair play, more
Right.
classically plotted,
Yes.
a great deal of humor, women characters or just dotty people as characters.
Yes,
No
yes.
private eye in sight, no
That's right.
violence
That's right,
on the
no
page,
violence.
no graphic sex or language
Exactly,
or
exactly.
anything. So libraries could like it. My mother loves them. I mean, we all loved them because
Right.
these were not disconcerting novels. They
That's
weren't.
true.
They weren't problem novels. They were just a great deal of fun, amazingly entertaining novels. And when I read Death on Demand, I was charmed and have
Well,
been charmed
thank you,
ever since.
Mary.
And we should, before I forget, I want to point out that Scandal in Fairhaven, which is the second in the Henry O series,
Yes.
published in October '94, now is in hardcover because your
Right.
first mystery was actually a paperback original.
The first 4 were paperback
That's right.
originals,
That's
and
right.
then Doubleday published 2 of them, and then with the Christie caper, I became a Bantam hardcover author, and the books after that have all been hardcover. But it's been a very exciting time to be a mystery writer. You know, as we were talking a bit before the show about having a long-term career in publishing, and at one time I wrote 7 books in 7 years and didn't sell any of them at that time. Now I did finally sell all of them ultimately, but 4 of them have only been published in England. So you know, it's a very difficult career, and it is not something where you succeed overnight, except for the select authors every year that publishing picks up and throws to the
Yes.
top of the heap.
That's
and
right.
says these are going to be this year's
That's
stars.
right. And they do
So,
that.
They
I mean,
do
as a
Right.
former publisher type, I know exactly
know.
that they do
Yes,
that. I mean,
yes.
those are the few. In fact, regardless of the quality of the manuscript,
That's right. It's irrelevant.
they need 1 to 5 big books in that season. It's all done
Yes.
by publishing
Yes,
seasons.
exactly.
So if the one they were hoping hasn't come in yet, they will pick another. A
That's
bridesmaid becomes a bride,
That's right.
actually.
Yeah.
But I think also what happened before Death on Demand in the 80s, I think the Nora Loft and Victoria Holtz, their publishers felt that there was no audience anymore for romantic suspense either.
I think
And actually,
that's
a lot of
true.
romantic suspense had some of the same qualities that your
That's
books
true.
do. A
That's
very
true.
good plot, usually a woman protagonist,
That's
and a lot
true.
of domestic detail in a way. I mean, we get to see inside the lives of other contemporary characters.
I would say the only difference that I would pick out between those romantic suspense novels and present day novels by American women mystery writers is that often there was a hero who
Yes.
did rescue the heroine in the last
Yes.
chapter.
We don't do that
We
anymore.
don't do that.
No, we don't
no,
do that.
no.
In fact, it's more likely that it's going to be the other way around.
Exactly.
Well, I thought that as a winner, now you have won 2 Anthonys, a McCavity, and an Agatha.
2 Agathas.
2 Agathas. I was trying to remember because at the last convention, if
Dead
you
Man's
won, I knew you
Island.
were nominated. You were
Yeah.
nominated more times than I actually wanted to.
Well,
it's too much math, actually. But these, I wondered if these are really awards that are in some ways more meaningful than the Edgar, which is the one that we hear about a lot. and which is obviously an honor. It's but it is always a committee of a small committee,
5
annual
authors.
committee
Yes.
of your peers, whereas the Anthony, which is given at Bouchercon,
That's
and
correct.
the Agatha, which is Malice Domestic. These are the 2 biggest conventions,
That's
and then
right.
Macavity is Mystery Readers International,
That's
isn't it?
correct.
Which is the biggest
Journal.
sort of book club newsletter, isn't
That's
it?
true.
Well, those are your readers who are
That's
voting
true.
for those.
That has meant a great deal to me, and I will have to confess that when Dead Man's Island won the Agatha this spring, I was so thrilled because I thought they really like Henrio. They really do.
Yeah, that must
you
have
know.
been scary in a way.
It was scary.
And I thought I would ask you later, but we could talk about it right now.
Okay.
With 8 books in a successful series, one was coming out actually more often than one a year.
Yes,
You've been
yes.
closer to like every 9 months or something,
Right,
haven't you?
right.
To launch a new series, I was curious why. I mean, I'm very glad you did. But did you
Well-
feel it would be a different audience? Did you just want to live with some new
Actually,
characters? You were a workaholic, Carolyn. And
Yes,
you,
I know. Well,
which
actually-
of these is the answer?
I love what I do. I truly do enjoy it. I decided to do a new series because I really had a sense that older women are often dismissed in our society. And this offended me. When I was a kid and I heard the term an older woman, this had a definite cachet to me. I thought, this is wonderful. This signified sophistication, serenity, savoir-faire. And I thought, this is a station to which I aspire.
They always
And-
wore hats.
Yes, oh yes, elegant.
So you finally
elegant.
looked good in a
Right,
hat once
right.
you became an older woman.
If I were a little taller.
Yeah,
but
you and me both.
Yes, you have to have both. You can't get that. But I really, I thought it would be wonderful to be an older woman, and frankly, I now am an older woman, and it offends me that our society has a tendency to quantify women by their estrogen level. And, when a writer doesn't like something, you know what they do. They write a book. So I thought about older women, and I thought about women who are older now, and these are the women who were young during World War II. And if you think about that for a moment, it should forever alter your perception of older women, because those are women who survived the most tumultuous years of this century. They knew hardship, they knew danger. They were the first women in great numbers who went outside their homes to work. They worked in factories, they worked in banks, they flew airplanes over the Himalayas. These were incredible women.
They experienced loss.
Yes,
There
and they
probably
did
wasn't
experience
a
loss.
household in America
Exactly,
didn't
that
lose
did
a
not
brother
have
or-
some loss. And so Henrio is my tribute to the women who were young during World War II. And I have a very strong second sense about Henrio. I think that mysteries, Mary, reflect the reality of our society. And I feel that my perceptions about Henrio are perhaps just a reflection of a change in our society in the perception of aging. I think, when you think about the attention that was given to the D-Day celebrations, and people paid attention to these men and women who had gone back
Yeah, you're right.
to England and to France for that anniversary. And I thought, there is a change happening here. Our society is beginning to realize that age enhances, that it does not diminish. So that's what Henrio is all about.
Well, it's interesting because I heard you say that Annie Lawrence, who is the protagonist of the Death on Demand series, the
Right.
8 books that are centered around the mystery bookstore in Broward's Rock, if I'm pronouncing
Yes.
it correctly, in South Carolina, which you said
Yes.
once I heard you say was very much like Hilton Head.
is, yes.
A place dear to your
AKA
heart, I
Hilton
guess.
Head, right.
But she is younger than you were when you were writing them. Henry's older than...
Yes,
So
yes.
it's interesting that is that just part of a writer wanting to walk into somebody else's shoes and experience it?
Henrio is a little older than I am, but not all that much. And Annie is a good deal younger than I, but she's the same age as my daughter. So you see, I feel that I have a window into that age group. And truth to tell, Annie is not really a lot like me. She is patterned a good deal after my daughter, with the exception I always point out strongly that Sarah does not have a temper. I gave Annie a temper because that was very helpful in fiction. But my daughter is a very lovely person, and she always tries very hard to do everything right. And she has a great sense of humor, and that's my picture of Annie. Henrio is a great deal more reflective of my personality. And she really had the career that I would have liked to have had. You know, I trained to be a reporter. I don't frankly think I had quite the toughness to be a successful reporter, but I have great admiration for women reporters.
Yes. Well, back to the idea about a career and what should make somebody write. Joe Papp, who's the founder of the Public Theater in New York, remember, and really did so much to change American theater in the same sort of period. You were talking about 70s, 80s.
Yes.
He said one time when someone asked about acting, he said, you don't become an actor unless you have to.
Yes.
Do you think it's kind of the same for writers? And,
Oh, yes.
You know, I
Yes.
would have customers come in and say, oh, I would love to write one of these, you know, I just don't have the time. And I think
You'll
no
never
one
do it,
did.
sweetheart.
I
No
mean,
one has time.
They had jobs,
Yes.
they had families, they had children.
They have
Many
lives.
of them continue to, because you are, I would say, in a small, the minority as being able to make a living from
Yes.
your work.
Well, and of course, for many, many years, I did not make a living at it,
That's
and
true.
I was supported
saying
by
you
my
don't deserve
husband.
it,
You know, right?
but that's true.
That's true.
I mean,
I am at the point now where I would earn enough to live on as a writer, but it's a minuscule number of writers who do that. I mean, something
Yes.
like maybe 3 or 4%.
No, I know you're in the top. I said
so-
best-selling. That was not hyperbole. This is, you are one
But-
of the name authors
Well-
one of the staples of a mystery section, even in a general interest
Thank you
store. You're
very
never
much.
going to
I appreciate
walk
it.
into a bookstore and not find.
I love you.
Well, no, that's
Well,
just true. I
thank
mean,
you.
you are one of the
Right.
certainly Bantam stars, but
Well, the truth of the thing is, Mary, when I go to a writer's conference and I speak, and someone asks me, how do you have the discipline to write these books? I know that that person will never be a writer, because I'm not a very disciplined person. None of the writers I know are very disciplined people. We are all very obsessive and very compulsive, and we have to write. The truth of the matter
that's
is,
the Joe Papp thing, isn't it? Don't do it unless you have to.
We have no choice. I truly, what happens to me when I'm not writing is I get very, very anxious. You see, I've got this imagination that's always busy building things, and if I engage it in working on a book, I'm fine, and if I don't, I'm just terrified that terrible gangreneish thing is crawling up my leg, and I'm going to, lose my left shin.
I can assure you, there's nothing there.
But it is the only thing that keeps me really going is to write. So.
Well, then that makes me wonder how you approach things. I think it was, say I'm quoting people today, I'm in the quoting mood, but I think this is Aristotle who said plot is character. I wondered, you have such wonderful characters. These people live long after the book is closed. I mean, I think of Dottie Laurel, Max's crazy mother, and I think of Henny, who, as I said, every mystery bookstore has a Henny, a fan who knows the
all.
stock better than you know it. Will jump on you if you've given a wrong
And
fact.
loves
Could win
to-
every trivia. Yes, and absolutely loves to do that. Also helps support you too, because these are women and some men, of course, who are spending enormous amounts of money buying and collecting
mysteries.
books and reading them and carefully preserving them and all. But I wondered if you also have always, and even in a couple of books, given particular homage to Agatha Christie, who's considered the queen of plotting, and the queen of deception.
Yes, she was.
Tricks. Do you start with characters, or do you start with plot, or as a locale? Because your books have been always had a fascinating locale.
Well, thank you.
I think of the Southern Mansion tour, which was just so much fun.
I enjoyed that.
Or the first one of this, a hurricane, or an island in an old mansion,
and
which
all
is
the
so
snakes
Christie-like.
Yes.
Do any of these one things trigger with you, or do you just keep all the spiral notebooks and all the ideas?
It's very hard to say exactly what it is. I would say that for the sort of book that I write, it is plot driven. So I create characters to make a particular plot work. Now, it is driven, though, by character, because there's always going to be a particular character who is the victim. And it's just true. As Hercule Poirot said, if you look in the life of the murder victim, you will find the reason for the death. And that is absolutely true, because that personality shapes everything, and the victim's personality will then suggest the personality of the people in that person's circle, the people who had reason to be angry or afraid or hostile or jealous of the dead person. So it works back and forth, but I have to have the characters that make the plot work.
Without the victim in this, I felt is one of your major characters.
Well, yeah, she was a very strong character.
And it's fascinating because she's dead. We never see her live.
That's right.
And yet, as Henry O interviews the townspeople, as she sees how the woman decorated her home, and Patty Kay just jumps off the page.
Thank you.
Henry O responds to her and says, "Here's a woman I would have liked," and I think every reader will too.
And the thing about Patty Kay, I like Patty Kay very much,
too.
and my sense of her is that she's one of those persons with great gifts who, however, does lack perception about human beings, and is so confident that she's right, and often she has the right motives, but you have to be more aware of how you are affecting those around you. So
she's a very aggressive person who feels in some ways the end justifies the means.
Exactly.
She's got to get there, and she'll run over you if she has to do it. But I wonder maybe if we can talk about trends, because I would say, I don't know if you think of your books in terms of colors or pieces of music, or I have a tendency to do that. But I would think that the tone of the new Henry O series is different.
Yes.
And some of that you've explained. If you have not an agenda exactly, but you have some very firm beliefs about aging in America and the position of women in America. But I also think that even all the supporting characters, there's a lot of wit, but there isn't the light heart. These are not as lighthearted.
No, these are a different kind of book. And as a matter of fact, this past winter I was writing the next Annie and Max, and I really had not realized how hard they are to write until I came back from this. Because you see, with an Annie and Max, you're writing an entertainment. You are writing something that has so many different levels, and you've got the characters with all the subplots and the things they're trying, but most of all, you are trying to entertain your reader as well as give them a good mystery. Now, in the Henry O books, basically it is the traditional mystery, but with the focus on exploring what went wrong in people's lives. And it's a more serious appraisal because Henry O is a more serious character. She's much older. She's very seasoned. She's very cynical in a way. She's seen a lot in her life.
Yeah, they're more sophisticated. It's a different kind of entertainment, that's all. And I think, like most mystery readers, we always have a stack of things by our bed because it depends on what mood we're in.
Exactly.
So I wondered if you have, as I said in previous books, paid homage to Mary Roberts Reinhardt and Christie and Dorothy Sayers, especially in Little Class on Murder, which is so much fun.
I loved writing
Annie
that book.
teaches that book, and of course, I think your fans all have always sat and read your books, the Death on Demand books, with a pen and paper because you drop so many names. I mean, people get their reading lists from your books. But I wondered if this is also a reflection of what you think are maybe some changes in trends in mysteries now?
Well, you know, I really did not give any thought to that, Mary, when I was writing it. It's just books that I wanted to write and a character that I'm interested in writing about. Because, you know, when you get to be my age, you see life in a very different way than you do when you were 30. I think at 30 you are so consumed with living, with experiencing, with growing, with doing things, that you have a tendency not to see the complexities of life. And when you get to be my age, you can always see that there are reasons behind reasons behind reasons that events occur, that people do what they do. And that's fascinating to me. And that truly is what I'd like to explore with the Henry O books.
Well, that's of course always because they always tell write what you love.
Yes,
I mean, write
true.
What you know.
I do.
But you are such a tireless. We were talking about this too before the camera turned on. A tireless promoter. But you used another term though. It wasn't as flattering. You said, but I bring it up because you have part of the popularity, I think, of what was a paperback original series, and even then was fighting for shelf space.
That's right.
Frankly,
That's
in
right.
the world of publishing and bookselling, you were always there. You did a lot of this on your own dime.
Exactly. Oh, most of it.
Yes, because I still have a lot of friends who are still paying for their own car fares and plane fares and all. But you must enjoy it. You've always seemed to enjoy it.
Well, I love
and
readers.
You think it's part of your professional task,
I think it's absolutely essential. You know, there are writers who are chosen by the publisher to be successful, and certainly I think publishers can pick books and put them on the bestseller list. But for the majority of writers, if you are going to be in bookstores, if you are going to reach readers, you can't depend upon the publisher to do it all, because they can only publicize so many books a year. And so therefore it's up to you, and I don't see this as a negative. I mean, you know, really I'm very proud of the books I write. I love to reach readers, and I'm not the least bit embarrassed about going out and telling people about the books I've done.
Well, of course, now, H.R.F. Keating has a little bitty book called Writing Crime Fiction, and the one thing I remember about it is he says, unlike perhaps other novelists, you are writing strictly for your reader. It doesn't matter that you love this character, it doesn't matter that you love this turn of phrase, if it's not going to entertain your reader, you know, out it goes. So I think that maybe is why a lot, or most of the mystery writers I've met do like to promote. Many of them are not gregarious by nature, and I think that's hard for them. But this is such a super idea.
Thank you very
much. The Heartbeat, which is your own newsletter, and you said your daughter puts it together.
My daughter puts it together, and I'm very proud of her, and I think she did a great job. And the response has been astonishing. When we put it together, Sarah said, well, Mother, why don't we offer a reading guide to your books? And it's just a little...
For book clubs.
Yeah, for book clubs.
Great.
And I said, oh, well, I said, you think? And she said, yes, let's do that. And I thought at the most we might get, say, 8, 10, 12 requests for it. To date, we've had 175. So, you know.
I would love a copy, too.
I will give you a copy.
Did you mention all those names of books that you mention in all of the books?
Oh, no.
That'd be giving things away. I think everybody should.
It's not that extensive.
Well, I want to remind everyone that the newest book, this is the Henry O series, is Scandal in Fairhaven. It's 1995 from Bantam. And something kind of exciting has happened with this book. Do you want to tell me about it?
Yes, I am truly, truly thrilled. At this point, Barbara Eden has taken an option on Scandal in Fairhaven to star, back up. It's taken an option on Dead Man's Island, the first book, to star as Henry O in a made-for-TV movie which will air on CBS.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I'm very excited about it.
Now, as I'm sure you and a lot of your friends know, these don't always come to pass, but that's great.
Exciting.
And it must mean that she loved it.
Well, I've been told that, and that really does mean a lot to me.
They're even the big stars like that are even producing. I mean, they're the ones taking the option out,
she's doing it, so it's her company.
I want to remind everybody, eight in print mystery novels, starting with Death on Demand, and you should start.
Okay,
we'll do the two series separately, because people should always start at the beginning. That's my theory. So Death on Demand is the first with the Annie Lawrence and Max and Laurel and Henny and all of our good friends in South Carolina. And then the Dead Man's Island was the first in the Henry O. And this is the new one, Scandal in Fairhaven. Is Dead Man's Island paperback yet?
Yes, it is.
Because they kept the same cover, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
I was thinking I had seen it.
Yes.
These are very nice jackets.
They are beautiful.
And so I want to thank you for coming,
Mary,
Carolyn
thank
G.
you
Hart.
very much.
And thank you all for tuning in to a discussion with Carolyn G. Hart.
A presentation of the Hennepin County Library.